Good morning. Our government has no higher responsibility than to support our men and women who are in harm's way. For months now, we have been working to get our military the resources it needs to keep the peace. This budget agreement delivers on that commitment. It fully funds our national defense at levels that Secretary Mattis has requested. It provides what the Pentagon needs to restore our military's edge for years to come. As Secretary Mattis said yesterday, and I quote, "Congressional action will ensure our military can defend our way of life." Now, that mission is hard enough, especially in a time of rapidly evolving threats. But our military's job has become exponentially harder because of the staggering readiness crisis that it is facing. I know I come up here and read off a whole bunch of statistics. You hear me do this every single week. This is the statistic that really gets to me. In 2017, we lost 80 service members in accidents and training incidents, nearly 4 times more than we lost in combat. In 2017, we lost 80 service members in accidents and training incidents. It's about 4 times as many people we lost in combat. Just think about that. With better training and equipment, many of these deaths could have been prevented. This is a sad and tragic state of affairs. And this is why we can never allow anyone to politicize our military or use our troops as bargaining chips. The stakes are just too high for this. Now, let me say one more thing. I know that there is a real commitment to solving the DACA challenge in both political parties. That's a commitment that I share. To anyone who doubts my intention to solve this problem and bring up a DACA and immigration reform bill, do not. We will bring a solution to the floor, one that the president will sign. We must pass this budget agreement first, though, so that we can get on to that. So please know that we are committed to getting this done. Before I turn it over to Chairman Thornberry, I want to take a moment, and I want to thank him. I want to thank Mac Thornberry, Chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and all the members of the Armed Services Committees, both Republicans and Democrats. Their leadership and their unwavering commitment to our service members and their families made this budget agreement possible. They live and breathe these problems. They know these issues. They know all the people who are fighting to keep us safe. They can tell you as well as anyone how critical that is that we get this done. Chairman Thornberry.
Well, thank you, Speaker, and all of us on the Armed Services Committee are extremely grateful for the Speaker's leadership in fixing the military as a priority. Let me just remind y'all of a couple of statistics. When the House passed our defense authorization bill at exactly the same numbers that are in the cap deal that we'll vote on today, the vote was 344 to 81. When we voted on the conference report at exactly the same defense levels that are in the cap deal today, the vote was 356 to 70. In the Senate, the votes were 89 to 8, and then the conference report was a voice vote. My point is, there is widespread agreement in both parties that we have cut the military too much, that our service members are suffering as a result, and that we need to do better. This cap deal that will be voted on today is at exactly the same funding levels as the bills that I just read the votes for. My view is that fixing the military is the dominant priority. We have to fix the military. I know members on both sides have other concerns. I wouldn't do this cap deal exactly the same way, but we owe it to the men and women who are risking their lives for us to give them the best equipment, the best training, the best support that this nation can provide. And this agreement begins to do that for the first time in a long time. Now turn to a combat veteran herself, the gentlelady from Arizona, Ms. McSally.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Martha McSally. I'm a retired Air Force colonel, A-10 pilot, spent 26 years in uniform, and now I deploy to Washington, D.C. One of the reasons why many of my fellow vets, like Mr. Gallagher here and I, came here was we really felt it was important for those of us who serve to be here when decisions like this are being discussed, debated, and voted on. We need veterans in Congress in order to be a voice at the table, and we have been tirelessly advocating and working with our chairman and our leadership to be that voice for our troops. When we talk about these 80 people who were killed in these accidents, these are real families who are having flags handed to them, and as having been a commander, and seeing the impacts, a very dangerous thing that we do in the military when we're training as well as in combat. And it's often a combination of things. We call it the safety chain of events that ends up with a mishap. It's a combination of a lack of training, a lack of resources, a lack of hours, a lack of experienced maintainers or experienced pilots. And all that comes together under difficult conditions, and then maybe the last thing happens, and they lose their lives. And so that is what we've been seeing happening after the dangerous cuts in our military from the last administration. It's been atrophying year and year and year after year, and our troops are paying the price. We have the most amazing men and women that have raised their right hand and taken an oath to defend us. And they are over there right now keeping us safe. And they are at bases all over America now training and ready for what might come next. And we owe it to them to give them everything they need and not play politics with them and their equipment and readiness. They are ready to pay the ultimate sacrifice for us. And we need people to stop playing politics with their lives and with everything they need in order to defend us. There's a lot of things we also need to work on. And there's a lot of issues related to our fiscal responsibility. We have to get to those. We've got to work together to get to those and get our spending under control. But we've got to make sure that right now we give the troops what they need to keep them safe, to keep them alive, and to keep us safe, because that price is one that we don't want to pay. So I'm glad that we finally were able to get to a place working with our chairman, our leadership here, Secretary Mattis, and a commander-in-chief who has the commitment to make sure our troops are supported and are trained and ready in order to do their job and their mission. And we have got to get these resources to them right now and stop playing politics with what they need. Thank you.
Please, Cheney.
Thank you very much. You know, it is a very sobering experience as a member of Congress to have the Secretary of Defense say to you that no foe in the field has done more harm to our military than the Budget Control Act, sequestration, the policies of the last administration. Yet that's where we are today. And we have come to this place where we all, everybody on this stage, I would say everybody in the Republican conference understands we've got to deal with the debt issue. There's no question about it. But we cannot do it on the backs of the men and women who are serving us. We don't have time on our side. We've got to get these resources to them right away, as quickly as we can. And I would also say to my good friends in the Freedom Caucus that we got these numbers, we got where we are because we were all unified. We stayed together. And I would ask them not to quit before we get this across the finish line. We need to stay unified. We need to get this budget deal passed so that we can then turn to the kinds of reforms that are really crucial in terms of the overall budget process. It's fundamentally important. And as we are having these debates as Republicans, as members of the House, I can tell you that we all keep very much in mind the moms and the dads out there, some of whom are in our own conference, whose sons and daughters are deploying. And we cannot be in a situation where we are letting our political debates, our political fights, our arguments get in the way of getting them the resources they need in this increasingly dangerous world to protect and defend every one of us. It's our most sacred obligation. I am very proud and honored to stand on this stage. I'm grateful for the hard work of the Speaker, of the Chairman, of Mike and Martha, and all of our colleagues on the Armed Services Committee, and I will be very proud to cast my vote in favor of this deal to get the military the resources they need. Thank you. Mr.
Mike Gallagher from Wisconsin.
Thank you. Before running for office, I spent 7 years on active duty in the Marine Corps, and we used to have a saying in the Marine Corps. We used to say, you ride to the sound of the guns, which basically means if you see a problem, you don't run away, you don't punt that problem to someone else, you confront it head on. You do your best to fix it no matter how difficult that is. And that's why I ran for office, and that's what we have an opportunity to do today, to end the devastating cuts to our national defense. So to my colleagues who have concerns, I get it. I just would say two things. One, neglecting our defense is not a recipe for long-term savings. As we've seen time and again throughout history, weakness invites aggression, which then costs us an exorbitant amount of money when we have to rearm or we slide into conflict on someone else's terms. The final thing I'd say is, I know I've only been here a year. I literally got lost trying to find this place here today. But it strikes me that it's always easy to vote no, right? You can always find some excuse to vote no on a bill. But the American people sent us here to ride to the sound of the guns and to fix problems like this, no matter how difficult that may be. So thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Baraboo.
All right. So Leader Pelosi had her big show on the floor last night. It lasted over 8 hours. Why are you insisting on this being a bill that the president will sign when Mitch McConnell says any bill that gets 60 minutes?
Look, first of all, my hat's off to her. I don't know if I could have hacked that for 8 hours. So it was pretty darn impressive. Yeah, you're right. And she wasn't wearing these kinds of shoes. I would have gone to the bathroom well before then, I got to tell you. You know, impressive. First, we want a DACA solution. Guess what? In order to shift our focus and get on to the next big priority, which is a DACA solution, we got to get this budget agreement done so that we can go and focus on this. And I said it once and I'll say it again. We will bring a DACA solution to the floor.